Have you ever had a problem in a real estate transaction? Well, of course not. Problems never happen, right? Well, problems are very common, happen all the time, and we're going to talk about 7 very common problems and what you could do as an investor to avoid them today. So, the first one is typically that a buyer flakes out on the property. And oftentimes people will want to tie up properties and then do some investigation and find out, like, well, I thought I could do X, Y, Z, and I can't, so I'm going to back out of the deal. So, you would just want to make sure that the buyer you're working with is serious. And the best way to do that is to get lots of money in a deposit up front so that they are committed to the property. Now, oftentimes the buyer will say, yes, but it was refundable. Yes, but if they do not uphold their end of the bargain, let's say that they say, we're going to do an inspection and instead they're trying to get approval for a zoning change or something like that. If they're not doing the things that they said on that contract, that deposit is the seller's compensation for them having not upheld their end of the deal. So it can protect the seller in ways that they might not be aware of just from the onset. The second one is that if you have a buyer who goes through due diligence, sometimes they will wait until the very end and then try to go back and negotiate the price. So holding it under contract during due diligence and then going back and retrading it, very common. And as a seller, you want to be ahead of that as much as possible by investigating what they want to do, who they are, and if you can find out if they have a reputation of doing that, that can make a big difference going forward. The third one is financing, and financing can be a bugger because sometimes, truthfully, a bank might say, hey, we'll do X, and then you get under contract and the bank says, actually, we'll do Y. So you as a seller can help by just understanding what's going on in the buyer's financing side, and then also just be willing to be creative. So, maybe the buyer needs to put an extra 10% down in order to make the deal work, according to the bank. If you as the seller are willing to leave 10% in until a certain period of time where they would pay you back out, that can help make a deal work. So just be open to being creative and make sure you're informed about what type of financing the buyer might be needing to do. The fourth one is title. With title, there's different rules that apply in different areas, and or sometimes some title companies just are a little more stringent than others. So if you're getting a title issue, make sure that you really understand the problem. Have an attorney who understands title issues investigate for you, and be involved and active in that process. And just understand even if you get an answer from one title company, it could be different with another one. So keep an open mind in reference to title issues, and most of them are all solvable. The fifth one is just disclosures. So oftentimes sellers, if they're doing commercial property, they're like, oh, we don't have to disclose anything, it's on the buyer. Well, anytime you are selling a property, if there's environmental issues, you to disclose. And even if you're not required to, if there's something that you know about that you know is going to cause an issue after settlement, when the buyer finds out, just tell them up front, because you want to avoid having an issue after settlement where the buyer says, well, you withheld information, and then there's a lawsuit and there's problems. So just make sure that you're upfront if you think it's something that's going to be an issue, even if you don't have to. The sixth one is insurance. So this one has really become a hot button issue recently. Insurance companies are underwriting much more aggressively. And so you as a seller need to be prepared for the fact the buyer is always going to have to pay more in insurance, even though you've had the same insurance for 30 years or whatever it may be. They're really targeting electrical panels that are outdated and anything that's going to be considered a safety hazard. So make sure that you are anticipating that. If the buyer has a hard time getting insurance, that can cause a real issue in the transaction. The seventh one is tenant turnover, which very common. Again, you'll be under contract and then all of a sudden 3 tenants give you notice that they're leaving. Oftentimes, tenants do get nervous if they know you're selling the building, but doing everything you can to proact any vacancies that turn over, or just be very upfront with the buyers. Say, hey, we had some turnovers. Do you want me to fill them or allow you to do that? That can help to avoid any issues on that side as well. So I hope this brought you some value as far as avoiding problems in your transaction. And if you're looking for investment properties in Pennsylvania and Maryland, reach out.